Welcome, friends. Welcome to my philosophical perspective on BTS's album and their logo and their title as well. So mainly that there's like a layers of meaning in terms of not just a folk song, but also in terms of their situation at their comeback and also their interaction with BTS fans called ARMY, and how all these relationships I think are has a deep meaning in terms of what the BTS is trying to do, I believe. So first thing is, yeah, Arirang is a folk song that's over 600 years old. There's like 60 versions, with from different regions and 3,600 variations. There's no meaning to the word, but it can be different type of emotions, I think, based on who is singing it. So first, I think meaning that Arirang could be it's like a beautiful hill, where you have the different villages and you have these hills between them, and so then the beautiful hill is where you can have interactions, I think, with your neighbors. And then the second sort of meaning that you can have is called precious one or al, um, meaning that yeah, it's a core that is that you think of it as you value highly. And so that can also mean young people. It could be your spouse. It could be your parents. And so it can be many different things that you long for and maybe you might have been separated from. And so it can mean that as well. So a lot of songs can be attributed to like a housewife, that is longing for their husbands to come back. And so the arirang is essentially a emotional expression, I think, of these three main Korean sort of pillars of feeling. Han, which is a suffering and resilience that you're kind of trying to overcome. Chung is where you have people with communal sort of feelings that you attach right away, right? It's not something that it's like not developed, but you can tell, like, when you meet Korean people that they have a lot of emotional connection pretty quickly. And then the last part is hung, which is when you overcome some of these resilience, then you end up having celebrations, right? When you overcome some of these, and you do that as as a community, essentially. And so these three things are pervasive throughout the K culture. So then you could see that that's not only in K-pop, but it's also a part of you know the the drama, the um, K-food and K-beauty and all these things where Koreans tends to try to like express those Han, Jung, and Hung throughout their performances, right? Where they're trying really hard to overcome their adversities, and then you do with the community, and then once you start to have some successes, then you end up having celebrations and whatnot, and so you end up expressing yourself, I think, in the medium that you are working on. So going back to K-pop, it is the forefront or the easy to see because it's right now growing around the world, and the medium itself is, over the internet, right? Like you are working on the social media in terms of music videos, vlogs, and all these other things that help to facilitate the interactions, right, and expressions. And so when um, BTS recently, I think they're talking about either army rang, which is like a play on word, right? Like to say that there's a arirang, but it's with army, And then when the BTS is talking about what is your love song, I think that happened recently with the um, Valentine's Day, right? So it's a way for them to ask essentially for from their um, fans on about their like sort of love or arirang and longing and all these other feelings that you might have. So it's kind of becoming more interactive, right? They're literally saying, okay, inviting the army to express themselves, how BTS express themselves as well. So one other important, I think, comment is that RM's APAC speech, APAC CEO speech that happened on October 25th, 2025, and K-pop, he described it as K-pop is like bibimbap, right? You have the different ingredients, and you mix them together, you makes a great dish. But when you eat the dish, you actually can still see the individual ingredients that went into making that dish. So you can think of K-pop as the same thing, right? It just pulls in different ingredients and different ideas and concepts together to create a new dish, or any taste, you know, works well together, but you can still see the individual parts that made that dish. And I think that's a pretty good, accurate description overall. Okay, so now we can go into looking at the actual album cover and maybe what it means. So first thing is that in a um, live chat, I think they were describing that the symbols are the first consonants for Arirang, so it's Ian, Lian, Lian, and that's what the shape looks like. That was the idea, and just going to the relation to the Korean flag, I think some other person I think also made that correlation. So the correlation starts with the white background, which means purity um, for the Korean flag, and then there's this red ring, which is cookie, I think. But then it's Iyung on the left side, um, which usually talks about the world. I mean, on the right side, the actual meaning for the flag itself is the universe that is in balance, and then the but then the ring on the left side is it's just red and has a circle in the middle. And then the second correlation is the kun, which is the three solid lines on the left, which usually means heaven. And then ri, which is on the lower left of the flag. So you can see the lines are they match, right? Like solid line, broken line in the middle, and then the solid line again. And so these are they correlate to each other. And so then we can talk a little bit about how that correlation are at two different levels. So the first level, I guess what I call physical or maybe immediate. Um, so the circles are like fire; they represent fire, right? Energy, and the ring shape is unity or infinity that lasts forever. And so then I would interpret this as like the army uniting with united BTS, right? So there's a lot of unity going on where BTS and army they're all coming together in a long time. And second is Kun, heaven and humanity. So its idea is that the way that the everybody's uniting, what army, BTS, and with each other, is through the humanity, right? Um, and I think, as I mentioned before, and that's specifically you could think of it as Arirang, and then the Han, Jung, and Hung that I mentioned earlier, right? So that's part of the humanity, I think, that army is referring to. And then lastly, BTS and army connecting with the rest of humanity, right? It's not just them coming together, but because of there's a free concert, there's the world tour, and so I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of opportunities, right, for meetups and whatnot. And so then the idea is that there's a lot of connections going on between all parties involved. And lastly, you have the Li. So it represents like a fire that can be creating like light, right, to injustices, to protect the weak, right? So whenever the weak is being prosecuted, then the unfairness that this fire will be able to light up. And so you can think about BTS, how they went through so many trials and tribulations, and same thing with Army. And the idea is that they are able to shed light on all these problems, I think, with their Arirang, so that way they can try to protect each other. And lastly, you have the spring aspect of Li, and that's there's a spring equinox, and that's 320, which is the drop date for the album itself. And so the idea is that this album will be the beginning of everything that they're kind of planning on. And lastly, the that can go over the personal development kind of interpretation of these symbols. So when you look at the red ring, instead of having two colors, it only has one, right? The red side, which is the energy and the fire side. So meaning that when you're controlling yourself, that you have control over the fire, and that the you have a very continuous sort of smoothing of it, right? Which means that the chaotic self, that you're not potentially in balance, but you've actually made the balance to be on the fire side and the energy, right? So then they're like um, expecting that you are self-awakening with the fire, and then that you will be more active, essentially. And then the heaven and humanity, that you are able to connect yourself to humanity with compassion, and you are able to withstand social pressure, right? Because you are now awakened your fire itself, and so then you won't be swallowed up by like either like what's happening, like the world events or the social pressures, from your parents or from society and whatnot, so that way you can still keep your individuality as you are connecting with the heavens and humanity. Lastly, with the Li, you are like again the firelight injustices, but the important thing is that that you are connecting with humanity through compassion, right? And so then you are not trying to overprotect, right, or underprotect, right? That you have the right amount because you have the self-control and you have the right connection with humanity because you have that self-awareness and control there. So that way you have the right balance to be able to enforce sort of justice against injustices around the world. But I think that's required, right? So that it's controlled and not it doesn't get out of control. So I think that's a personal development where I think it's a guide, right, for you to be able to be a positive force around the world. And so when you look at the Gongwon event, and it still has the K cultural values of Hanjung-hun. Then you have the bibimbap of like mixing different cultures together. And so then when you have Arirang that has that philosophy, then you can imagine how the songs, right, that BTS probably have created are probably a mixture of so many different genres and ideas and philosophies together based on the individual members, you know, their personalities and whatnot, right? So I can imagine the creativity is probably quite off the charts in terms of what they can create. So I will be looking forward to the more interesting information um, and connections and meaning that they'll drop because it'll be quite different, I think, from other albums just because of the with all these connections just from the title of the album itself. And so I'll be looking forward to the Kwangmun free concert um, on March 21st at 8 p.m. KST. So so thank you for listening to this philosophical perspective. And if you'd like to support Simple Like One, please click like and subscribe and share the video. Um, and if you'd like to support me financially, you can also buy me coffee. So I'll see you in the next one.